Celeste is a game about platforming and putting your character exactly where she needs to be. But what if you needed to worry about not just one, but two characters? In this video series, I'm going to be exploring the possibilities and the impossibilities of beating the game while constantly carrying Theo around. I'll be doing one chapter each video, so make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss any chapters. So, getting right into it, I'm going to be using Everest, which is the mod launcher or mod manager from Celeste to make this happen. And on top of that, I'm going to be using the mod extended variants to spawn Theo in every room. I might also be using the Speedrun Tool mod after a while, if it gets too difficult, just to make save states. So I would, well, still have to do every challenge the game has to offer, but it would be less tedious. Anyway, getting into it, don't mind all the save files I have. Let's make a new file and get into the prologue. I'll be skipping every cutscene because they don't really matter. Okay, so as you can see, I already have Theo here, but if you don't already have Theo here, which you will not if you play this, just enable him within the menu, extended variants, game elements, and then turn on Theo crystals everywhere. If you've done that, then you'll start to notice you can't actually go through screen transitions unless you're carrying Theo. So now I can go through screen transitions, but if I drop Theo again, I can't. I also cannot throw Theo through screen transitions. So really the only way for me to progress is to be holding Theo at all times. Okay, so the first chapter is rather simple. Just some wall jumps and some throws. The only really difficult thing about the prologue is the pits, first of all. But next to that is the fact that you cannot actually climb while holding Theo. So that's basically the first challenge done, because from here on out it's just a straight walk to the end. Well, technically there's one jump, but I don't think that will pose too much of an issue. And then we get the ending cutscene, which looks a little weird, as you might notice, because while you're in cutscenes, Theo actually stays on top of your head, but Madeline is not actually holding him. So, that's the prologue. So getting right into it. Chapter 1. Things will get a little bit tricky in this chapter, but there's only like 2 rooms that are really difficult. So I might just skip through most of the chapter until I get to those rooms. This is the first room where we actually need to do something a slight bit more advanced. Not too much though. You just have to throw Theo against the wall and then dash up to catch him in midair. So like this. We'll be doing that a lot, and I'll be referring to it as a Theo drop from now on. I don't think that's the official term, because a Theo drop is doing it midair like that. Okay, so as you can see, that room was a little bit more tricky, especially if you pay attention to the time. Okay, this is the first room that's gonna be really difficult, because we'll need to use some techniques that I have not explained yet. So the technique we're going to be using is a technique that's very similar to the one taught to you in Chapter 9, called wave dashing. If you have not played Chapter 9, I would recommend playing Chapter 9 first and then returning. If you do not care about any spoilers, then keep watching, because I will try to explain what wave dashing is. So wave dashing is basically dashing towards the ground diagonally, and then jumping as soon as you hit the ground. If you do this correctly, you regain your dash and gain a bunch of horizontal momentum. If you've played Chapter 8C, then you're also familiar with this maneuver. This maneuver is called a hyper. A hyper is basically where you do a wave dash, but you do it from the ground. So instead of jumping first, you just input diagonally down, then you dash, and you jump shortly after. This is called a hyper, and if you manage to do it perfectly, you also regain your dash from it. A super, which is the technique we're going to be using, is very similar to a hyper, in the sense that you dash along the ground and you jump after a very short while. But instead of dashing diagonally down, we dash horizontally. So, doing it correctly looks a bit like this. As you can see, we don't get quite as much distance as if we were to do a hyper like this. But we do get a little bit more height. And the height is what we're after. However, there's one more thing we need to talk about, and that is the fact that where we are in Chapter 1 right now, we don't have enough space to do a super from. So, we need to start this super in midair. Starting a super in midair looks a bit like this. So you dash to the right or to the left to a platform. So right here, you do something like that. You dash to a platform, and as soon as you hit the platform, you jump. If you do that, then you do regain your dash. Because, as you can see, if I try to do a super here, I do not regain my dash. Well, sometimes I do. This platform is slightly big enough, but it's very difficult to do. So starting in midair will give us a way higher success chance. We can also do this on any platform. So even if the platform is just one wide, we will be able to do a midair super off of it, assuming that we have enough space to the left or to the right of this platform. Now back to Chapter 1. As you can see, I perform a midair super here, and while doing this, I pick up Theo. After picking up Theo, I dash top right, and just barely make the jump, or make the dash to the platform. So continuing the run, right here, we will do another Theo drop against that little wall over here. And then, just like in the last room, we will do a super with Theo, and move on from here. In this room, I think it's important that we first talk about neutral jumping, because it will be a crucial part of how to solve this room. Also, we will need to talk a little bit more about Theo dropping, because right here we cannot just do a Theo drop against a wall. We need to do it in midair to get up to this wall. Okay, so the best way to explain how neutral jumping works is to, I think, show it first, and afterwards I'll try to explain how it works. So, if you climb up this wall, you'll notice that you won't get very far up the wall. You'll get to about that rock if you do it correctly. If you like jump first and then start holding the wall. However, if we neutral jump, like I'm doing right now, you can already see my controller display. So you might figure, oh, that's how it works. That in combination with the name, neutral jumping. But as you can see, just like that, we're at the top of this wall, without using a single point of stamina. Because jumping away from walls does not use stamina. So if there was a way, and there is a way, to jump on a wall while gaining height in the process, then we would be able to climb any vertical wall without using any stamina whatsoever. And herein lies the technique called neutral jumping. And as you might have guessed, neutral jumping is all about holding neutral on your controller. So if you look at this stick over here, I can move it around. I can hold a direction, but if I'm holding no direction, that's called holding neutral. So, if I do that, you'll see that Madeline has a different behavior while jumping off the wall than when you're holding towards or away from the wall. This different behavior is what allows us to gain height while jumping on the wall, because you just use that different behavior while holding neutral and jumping off the wall, and then hold left immediately after, so you start hugging the wall again. And you do that over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And it's actually rather tricky to get a hold of, but once you get into like a specific rhythm, it is not that tricky anymore. And we can do this with Madeline alone, but we can also do this with Theo, which effectively gives us a way to climb up walls infinitely, even while holding Theo, removing the need for a wall climb. So, might as well talk about Theo dropping while I'm here. As I've told you guys, you can Theo drop off the wall. But as I've also told you guys, that is not a true Theo drop. An actual Theo drop is dropping Theo in midair, then immediately dashing afterwards, grabbing Theo again, and, well, going up with him. Like, oh, I mess it up sometimes. Like so. This way, you can get on ledges such as this, without having to use the wall. Say, for example, there were spikes on this little wall, or something else that prevented me from throwing Theo against it, then I would have needed to use that to get on top of here. This is also the case in Chapter 1. So going back to Chapter 1, if we combine those two techniques we just learned, we are actually able to get, well, to do this room. Like so. So this is the final room of this chapter, and it is most certainly the most difficult of this entire chapter. Mainly because we cannot activate these zip movers. So we'll have to use the speedrun route, in which we neutral jump and punch up this wall. And then we have to dash up here somehow, which is possible, but it is very difficult. So I will now cut to my successful attempt. Okay, and there we go. He's up there. Now the only thing I need to do is not die, which, under this pressure, a little bit more difficult. Okay, well, there we go. But that's the first chapter done. So yeah, like I said at the start of this video, I will do one chapter per video. I don't know when I'm gonna release the next video, but that's it for me for now.